Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets across Myanmar in one of the biggest days of protest against the military coup. Police fired tear gas and stun grenades to break up the protest in the country's northern Shan region. And the latest demonstrations come despite forces of security overnight raids on protest leaders in the main city of Yangon. In India, another farmer has committed suicide at the Delhi border in protest against the centre's controversial agriculture laws. Police said the victim, who belonged to the northern Haryana state, hung himself from a tree. Nearly 250 growers have died during the anti-farm laws protest since November 26th. The Arab coalition says it has destroyed 5 drones launched by Yemen's Houthis to target the southern part of Saudi Arabia. State media said the drones were intercepted before they could cause any damage on the ground. Houthi strikes against Saudi targets have increased in recent days amid ramped-up international efforts to end the Yemen war. Mexico has reported nearly 800 new coronavirus deaths in a day, while its toll has surged to over 190,000. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has hailed a giant step as the Senate passes $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill. Pakistan has reported nearly 1,800 cases and 39 fatalities overnight, with the death toll crossing 13,200. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.58 million lives and infected more than 116 million people so far. And in tennis, Hungary's Martin Fucsovics beat Croatian-born S.KOREA 6-4, 6-1 in the semifinals of the Rotterdam Open, while Russia's Andrei Rublev defeated Greek star Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-3, 7-6. Fucsovics will clash with Andrei Rublev in the final today. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets across Myanmar in one of the biggest days of protests against the military coup. Police fired tear gas and stun grenades to break up the protest in the country's northern Shan region. In Mandalay, activists staged a sit-in protest after 2 minutes of silence to honor the people killed by police and the army. The latest demonstrations comes despite security forces' overnight raids on protest leaders in the main city of Yangon. Locals said that the forces arrested 3 people for unknown reasons. The Assistance Association for Political Prisoners advocacy group says over 1,700 people have been detained under the army so far. In India, another farmer has committed suicide at the Delhi border in protest against the centre's controversial agriculture laws. Nearly 250 growers have died during the anti-farm laws protest since the 26th of November. Police said the victim, who belonged to the northern Haryana state, hung himself from a tree. Meanwhile, the farmer unions has announced to continue the protest and strengthen the movement. It said that every village should provide 1 tractor and 15 men for 10 days on a rotation basis. Moreover, a Sikh leader in the United Kingdom has called for United Nations observers to monitor the protest sites and report on abuses on human rights. The Arab coalition says it has destroyed 5 drones launched by Yemen's Houthis to target the southern part of Saudi Arabia. Coalition spokesperson Colonel Turki Al-Malki said that the drones were intercepted before they could cause any damage. He said the coalition has destroyed multiple aircraft that the group deliberately launched towards the civilians. Al-Malki said that the coalition is working to protect the civilians in accordance with international humanitarian laws. Yesterday, the coalition said Houthis conducted 8 such strikes in 24 hours. Houthi strikes against Saudi targets have increased in recent days amid ramped-up international efforts to end the Yemen war. Thousands of Israelis hit the streets for the 37th consecutive week in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The nationwide anti-Netanyahu protests kicked off bigger and louder than with the elections fast approaching. Protesters rallied outside Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem, calling for his resignation over his ongoing criminal trial. Demonstrators also gathered at some 550 central junctions, squares, and bridges across the country. Famed Israeli artists, activists, and lecturers also joined the protest in order to show their support. Israel state media said Prime Minister's supporters attacked demonstrators in Jerusalem. Netanyahu is facing severe public anger over the government's handling of the pandemic and his ongoing court trial. However, he categorically denies the charges of corruption and fraud leveled against him. In Senegal, another protester has been killed in clashes with the police during the demonstrations against President Macky Sall. At least 5 people have died in protests sparked by the arrest of Senegal's most prominent opposition leader, Ousmane Sonko. Violent clashes between police and opposition supporters continued in the capital, Dakar, and elsewhere. Military officials said protesters burned down a police station in Daobe while ransacked another 6 across the country. Meanwhile, the opposition coalition has called for 3 days of nationwide protests beginning on Monday. In a statement, the Movement for the Defense of Democracy urged people to massively descend onto the streets. Earlier, 15-nation economic community of West African states called for all parties to exercise restraint. Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Hassan Diab has said that the country is heading towards chaos as the currency continues to collapse. In a televised speech, Diab threatened to stop working to pressure politicians to form a new government. He urged the politicians to put aside their differences in order to form a government that can attract foreign help. The caretaker premier said the financial and political situation is severely straining the country. Meanwhile, protests against the financial crisis continues in Lebanon as the army tried to maintain law and order in Beirut. Demonstrators blocked various roadways across the country for the 5th day in a row. Diab's cabinet resigned following last year's Beirut port explosion. Turkey says it is open to talks with Greece to solve the Eastern Mediterranean dispute through talks in line with international law. Defense Minister Hulusi Akar made the remarks during the Blue Homeland tactical exercise on the Ursi race of the Aegean Sea. He said Ankara is in favor of having good neighborly relations with Athens. Akar said despite this, Greece continues with provocative attempts, actions, and irresponsible statements. The defense minister said Greece does so to negatively affect the European Union and international public opinion, along with to mislead them. Akar also called Egypt's decision to respect Turkey's continental shelf and the Mediterranean an important development. He continued by signaling that a positive step may lead to different developments in the near future. In Thailand, hundreds of demonstrators have gathered in the capital Bangkok to demand the release of protest leaders from jail. They rallied outside a criminal court defying an order banning public gatherings in the city. A few protesters burned photographs of the king and called for ending of the strict royal insult law. Earlier, police warned protesters that they risked being arrested and threatened harsher measures. In a podcast, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha also urged citizens to respect the law. The youth-led political movement rose up last year, calling for the premier's resignation and reforms of the monarchy. Mexico has reported nearly 800 new coronavirus deaths in a day, while its toll has surged to over 190,000. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.58 million lives and infected more than 116 million people so far. More on the pandemic in this report.
Other than physical damages, the virus has been testing nerves of both public and the government. From protests to resignations, pandemic-related issues have been equally active as the disease itself. In Paraguay, the president has asked all cabinet ministers to resign following clashes at protests against the government's handling of the COVID-19 crisis. In the U.S. Senate, the all-night session saw Democrats battling among themselves over jobless aid and the Republican minority failing to push through some 36 amendments to the relief bill. But finally, Biden was happy that with his coronavirus aid bill, $1,400 payments to most Americans will start to go out this month.
When we took office 45 days ago, I promised the American people that help was on the way. Today, I can say we've taken one more giant step forward in delivering on that promise that help is on the way.
Over in Europe, passengers flying indirectly to Portugal and Britain or Brazil will have to quarantine for 2 weeks upon arrival. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the reopening of the schools to all pupils on Monday will mark the first step back towards normality. Ireland reached the milestone of 500,000 coronavirus jabs administered. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of people in northern France went back into lockdown. French experts say around half of the health workers in the country's care homes do not want to be vaccinated.
This virus is brutal and the toughness of our sector has shown. The vaccine adds to all this. And today, it's not that we want to say we don't want to get the vaccine, we don't want to protect ourselves or the residents. It's just that we have completely lost trust in the government.
After no new local COVID-19 cases, New Zealand marked a full week of no community transmissions across the country. Neighbouring Australia also had no local COVID-19 cases, making it the 37th day of no infections this year.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 39 more people have died from the novel coronavirus, bringing the country's death count to 13,205. The health ministry confirmed 1,780 cases overnight. The total number of infections so far has surpassed 590,000. The ministry said more than 559,000 of these people have recovered from the disease. It said the number of active cases has jumped over 18,000. Meanwhile, nearly 1,600 patients are in critical condition. At least one passenger has died and 40 others are injured after a train derailed near Pakistan's port city of Karachi. The train was going to Lahore from Karachi, where 9 of its bogies derailed near Sangi railway station. Army and Ranger troops along with engineers were moved to the incident site immediately for rescue and relief efforts. The timely deployment of troops ensured safety of the passengers and their luggage. The injured people have been moved to a hospital where most of them are in critical condition. Officials say the rescue operation has been completed and now officials are working to open the track for the trains. The United States and South Korea are set to conduct their springtime joint military exercise this week. However, the drills will be scaled back due to the coronavirus pandemic. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the 9-day computer-stimulated command post exercise will begin on Monday. In a statement, he said both sides decided to proceed with the drills after comprehensively considering the COVID-19 situation. He added the exercises are defense in nature, and the drills will not include outdoor maneuvers, and the number of troops and equipment will be minimized. Meanwhile, North Korea said it is closely monitoring the combined drills and calls for the release of the war. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In France, a street sweeper is using TikTok to spread the message of cleanliness. The 45-year-old was fed up with the people throwing litter on the ground in the COVID-19 pandemic. More in this report.
Paris resident Ludovic Francesquet has gone viral after he started using TikTok to urge people to put their litter in the garbage cans. The street sweeper has been posting time-lapse videos of him sweeping up piles of trash. He mixes dancing and heartfelt appeals to call on his fellow Parisians to keep the city clean.
Allez-y. Je fais des vidéos en tant qu'éboueur.
I made videos as a garbage collector. It got 100 likes. I said, wow, let's try to go further. And then I realized it reaches the young generation. And in my head, it clicked right away. I said, okay, I'll do before and after videos. We'll try to encourage people to do this profession because we are not immortal. I hope there will be people to take over and continue this beautiful work that we do around the world.
The Frenchman's TikTok account has 59,000 followers and around 608,000 likes. He has previously worked as a caregiver for cancer patients and autistic adults, but he says garbage collecting is his true calling.
When I was little and doing grocery shopping with my mother, walking on the streets, I was picking up paper bags from the street, and she would say, "My son, that's disgusting. What are you doing?" And I would say, "I know it's disgusting, but it's important for the planet."
With cafes and diners closed, many people are eating takeaway in public squares, increasing the volume of trash on the streets. But Francesquet is doing his best to clean the streets and is pursuing his dream of making the planet a better place to live in.
In Mexico, the capital city has inaugurated the first cable car line to ease traffic woes. Officials say the cable bus will improve mobility in one of the world's biggest cities. This report has more.
For years, the city of 9 million people has been plagued by traffic jams. But thanks to cable bus, the metropolis will finally enjoy smoother travel and commute. Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum was full of praise after she inaugurated the first two stations.
This is a system, as you can see, which operates via cable, and it is for the areas with the greatest needs in this city. It's a world-class system for important people in Mexico City. It's a public transportation system which not only reduces transportation times, it is also a sustainable system which has low environmental impact. In addition, it is also a transportation system that has very high social content.
The cable bus system will have a length of 9.2 kilometers and 5 stations. Each air cabin has 10 seats and large windows for ventilation due to the coronavirus pandemic. At the moment, only 6 passengers who must all wear face masks will be allowed to board.
Very good and very comfortable. It will be useful for a lot of people who live here. For example, in my case, my son goes to school in this area, and earlier it was very hard for me to get back from the middle of the town.
The system was developed by the Austrian company Doppelmayr, which has built cable cars in 80 different countries. Locals are understandably excited for access to a smoother, faster, and cleaner mode of traveling.
The Berlin Film Festival has wrapped up its annual awards ceremony. The winners were unveiled following a virtual industry event of 5 days. More in this report.
Filmmakers and artists were awarded for their creative storylines, film production skills, and acting performances. As the Berlin Film Festival revealed its 2021 awards in a virtual presentation. Among the prize winners was the Romanian director Radu Jude, who scooped the top Golden Bear Award for a dark comedy depicting the everyday aggression experienced by a teacher in Bucharest. Bavarian director and screenwriter Maria Spat's touching documentary, Mr. Bachman and His Class, was crowned with the Silver Bear Jury Prize.
The film shows how far you can go simply with true respect, sincere communication, and with that magic all great teachers possess, sparkling the fire of passion in their students by activating their fantasy. The Silver Bear Jury Prize goes to Maria Spät for Herr Bachmann und seine Klasse.
German actress Maren Eggert won the Best Leading Performance honor for her role in I Am Your Man. while Hungary's debut filmmaker Dean Nagy took the Silver Bear for Best Director for the war movie Natural Light.
A narration that transcends its historical context, a portrait of war in which the observant gaze of the director reminds us again of the need to choose between passivity and taking individual responsibility. The Silver Bear for Best Director goes to Denis Nagy for Natural Light.
Festival organizers hope to show this year's films in cinemas at a live follow-up event in June, after the potential reopening of movie theaters.
China's exports have grown at a record pace from a year earlier, despite the pandemic and the Lunar New Year holiday. Customs data showed the exports skyrocketed over 154% in February compared with a year earlier. Moreover, China's foreign trade increased significantly in January and February. China's trade surplus jumped over $103 billion for the first 2 months. In a statement, the customs said a rebound in foreign demand drove the surge. It said, in addition, a majority of manufacturing employees in China chose to stay put over the Lunar New Year holidays. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.